Here we are again, Making Insight, episode 2 with Starseed and Heart Center coach Obsidian Whyte. Let's begin. Obsidian Whyte, welcome to Making Insight. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I can't wait to talk about all the things that we have in store today. Please introduce yourself for whoever's listening.
Sure. Hey, Clayton, and hello to all of you who are tuning in. I think it's so cool how my name kind of rhymes with Making Insight. Obsidian Whyte, Making Insight. They kind of flow together nicely. So it's such an honor to get to be here and to get to connect with you and drop in so deep today, Clayton. And for those of you who are tuning in that maybe we haven't had the opportunity of meeting each other yet or knowing one another in the online world, I'm Obsidian, born and raised here in Las Vegas. And, I'm a ceremonialist. I'm a heart-centered coach and leader, and I support people to really discover and embody their purpose and develop the confidence, mindset, leadership skills, communication skills, and tools to be able to go out into the world and do what they love.
Amazing. We crossed paths earlier this year for a lot of those reasons that you just listed off. And I have had a couple moments shared with you in some work that you do involving inner works, spiritual work, Kundalini yoga. I'm very curious. Could you tell me about where your journey began with all of this work?
Absolutely. Sure. I would say that the journey really began for me at 11 years old. At 11 years old, my father was in his second year of a stage 4 glioblastoma brain cancer. And I got to watch my father, who was the strong, powerful provider, protector, begin to disintegrate and begin to lose his life, lose his battle with cancer. And the moment that he died, he was in hospice and we were sitting in my family living room. I watched his life force energy, his spirit leave his body. There's this energy of white light that lifted from his heart and expanded and filled the entire room. And at 11 years old, I had no idea what I was seeing. I had no idea what would happen now that my father was not here in the physical realm. That loss, that death of the most important man in my life really catalyzed my journey of beginning to ask deeper questions about life. What is this all for? Who am I, right? And being such a young woman, 11 years old, asking these big life questions, you know, it really opened me up to a possibility that there was so much more than what met the eye. And at 15, I'm sure many of you have heard of the documentary on Netflix, The Secret. I watched this documentary with my best friends, and I really woke up to the truth, to the reality that I'm the creator of my experience in life. And I started to see signs of this everywhere that I went, right? Like I would think about at that time, my dream car was a red Camaro. And so I would think about at 15 years old wanting this red Camaro and so excited about it. And then everywhere I looked when I was in the car, I thought I would see these red Camaros everywhere. And so I started to see this evidence of like that which you think about and that which you focus on becomes projected onto the external reality, right? And I was so excited and curious about the fact that I could have some power in creating my reality, and that I didn't have to do the traditional route of education and what my parents wanted me to do and what I thought that I needed to do to survive in the world. I woke up to the fact that I'm an infinite being. I can do and be and create anything that I want with my life. And so what will it be? Right? So that was the catalyst, my father's death, and then learning the secret. And then they just went all in, studied metaphysics, went really deep into yoga and meditation. And that was a way that my mother and I grieved my father's death together. We would go to yoga classes, and she studied A Course in Miracles by Marianne Williamson. And that really helped her get through the first year of my father's death. She'd share these principles with me. And so before I knew it, my whole life became consumed with the longing to know spirit, the longing to reach a higher level of consciousness, of inner connection. And I devoted my entire life to that undertaking.
Are you familiar with imposter syndrome?
Absolutely.
Do you ever experience imposter syndrome based on the what you mentioned of seeing this inner world inside us and projecting it into the outer world, and that's what sort of what makes up who we are on this journey that you're experiencing? Does that show up for you?
How imposter syndrome shows up for me is self-doubt, right? I'll question my sense of reality. I question, yeah, if I have all this spiritual insight and understanding, why in some areas of my life can it feel so difficult to bring this vast insight and understanding and really actualize it more fully, right? And so imposter syndrome shows up for me as a questioning of myself, but the questioning of myself is actually a gift because it allows me to look deeper at the places that feel uncertain of my value and my worth. And through really studying these spiritual principles and deepening my relationship with spirit, I recognize that each of us are all threads that make a whole tapestry of existence. And we are each so important and have an essential role to play. And so we get to use the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome to help us look deeper within and remember who we really are.
Remember who we really are. I am on that similar journey right now, and I feel like I've just broken the surface. Where do you feel like you are in that journey right now, presently, into figuring out who you really are?
Mhm. Well, Clayton, it's a great question because speaking of loss and how my father's death was the catalyst for my spiritual awakening, at present, I last month lost my grandmother, who was my best friend. And she's also has been a huge support system on my path. And so through the losing her on the physical realm, I'm in this deep question of what do I really want? And what is required of me to really create what I want, right? And is this beautiful opportunity to meet myself in the places of deprivation, of lack, of insecurity, of uncertainty, and to love those parts of myself into wholeness. And so that is where I'm at on the journey is really accepting all of myself with total compassion and acceptance and knowing that through that compassion for myself and everything that I am, the things that I don't like, the things that I love, it gets to allow me to have more presence in my own body, in my own experience, to be attuned to what's happening inside of me. And then it also allows me to hold a space for other people, right? Where we can sit in the questions together of who am I? What am I doing here? What is this life all about? So it's through my own questioning and through going into the depths of my own darkness and fear that it allows me to live even more fully into my purpose.
Love it. You mentioned in there discovering those parts of ourselves that we don't like. Do you think as we age in this human experience, we condition ourselves to sort of ignore that? And if so, how do you best discover those things about yourself that you dislike while also embracing them?
Sure. I think it's very common as humans to have aspects of ourselves that we are challenged by and that aren't the easiest to contend with. And then we'll just normalize that. And sometimes, depending upon our upbringing, depending upon the schooling that we had or didn't have, it can really allow us to question who we are and what we want. And also, I think that in that questioning, it invites an even deeper mm, opportunity for self-exploration around what is this part of me that's difficult to understand and be with and know, and where does that really come from? And is that mine? Did I create that? Or was this something that someone told me? Was this something that came from somewhere else along my life journey? And if so, if it is a narrative that we picked up along the way, it's amazing to first have the awareness of it. And then we get to kind of begin to feel into the emotions that are attached to it, feel those, to recognize the story that's in the mind and the emotions that are implanted in the body, maybe because of what that story has created. And then once we have that insight, we can allow ourselves to process and to feel. And this is a great opportunity for someone that's on this journey of getting to know themselves and learning how to feel all of the things that they hold inside of them, to get support, whether it's with a therapist or with a coach or investing in some type of training for emotional intelligence. It's important to learn tools and strategies so that we can learn how to reprogram ourselves and learn how to really take up all of the space that we were meant to take up, living our full purpose, living our full yes.
Space we were able to take up. And I definitely I believe that there's space, physical space that we make up, and then non-physical space and existence that we also make up. I could be going off on a tangent here now, but what do you believe is within this suit we're wearing? You mentioned a soul earlier. What do you believe in, and how does it get projected into your work?
So inside of this skin suit, there's so much. There's so much. I mean, I'm from the space of really looking at our anatomy, right? We have all of our intestines and our blood and our bones that are so vital to take care of. So important to take care of our physical body. Because in order to ascend into higher levels of consciousness and in order to really make the impact that we're here to make in the world, it's essential that we're rooted in our bodies and taking care of ourselves, right? And so that level, essential. And also, what is inside of us, I believe, is stardust. I believe is energy. I believe is light.
Energy. I like that.
Water, maybe think the elements of the earth and the air, like all of this exists inside of us. And so by taking care of ourselves on a physical level and also understanding who we really are and what we're a part of on a spiritual level, that's where we can really create that bridge to actualizing our potential and creating what we desire and what we dream of in this life.
Would you view all of, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think society is actualizing our potential as a whole?
Yeah, it's a grand question.
Definitely a subjective answer. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a lot of ways that society really wants people to remain asleep and conditioned to the system.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Right, that's everywhere. And I think that when you start to wake up and become more conscious, you can start to look at the ways in which, because we all do it, we all play into the system in some ways, right? Especially with fear and giving in to fear. Um, but we can begin to make the connections in ways that we are a product of our culture, our society, and begin to dismantle what it is that doesn't resonate and align with us.
Thinking about just my past year, trying to figure out that myself, detaching from things that no longer serve me and detaching from things that will open up space that will better help me become what is true and who I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a courageous path to be on, you know. It's such a courageous path to be on, and it's also a non-conventional path. And it requires that we shed and let go of so many limitations and fears and restraints that we put on ourselves as we continue to wake up to the truth and the fact that we came to this earth to remember all that we are. And then from that place of remembrance, to talk about what is inside of us. So much of my work is in the heart space. So much awakening and healing happens through feeling and tuning into the heart and allowing ourselves to be seen, to be held, to be heard. And as we begin to demask the layers of ego and illusion and feel into the beauty of our own hearts, right? We talk about this compassion. I think that that's the crown jewel of this transformational work is the embodiment of compassion for ourselves. Because then our presence is a healing force. Our presence naturally uplifts and inspires others. And it doesn't even mean we have to do anything. It's just the embodiment of being our authentic selves, letting ourselves be seen, held, and heard, and having deep compassion for all the parts of ourselves that are difficult, that are complicated, that are uncertain. And through that, a beautiful space, a relational field opens up with another where we can create and we can share and we can laugh and we can dance and we can cry and we can experience the total profundity and opportunity and gift of being alive.
Hear you, Obsidian. I would say from my own experience, beginning to understand the the value of all those feelings and what they could mean to our soul and almost being numb to that for a lot of my life in in a way where like I was finding value in all these things outside of myself. In that, we do live in a material world, but at the same time, or we do live in a material world and we're conditioned to, attach values to all these things such as money and possessions and assets. But for me personally, over the past year, finding so much value in discovering all these feelings and what they mean to me. I mean, you've been a small part of that journey with large contributions. So, um, yeah, I just had to speak on that.
What I'll say to that, Clayton, is I think that like learning how to sit with ourselves and to be inside of the question and to be inside of the confusion and the uncertainty is so enormously powerful because we get to really experience all of the energy that we hold inside of us and how to give it a medium through our breath through which can be moved through and expressed, right? And so it's that permission to get to know yourself. Yes, in the strengths and in the passions and in the purpose and in the values of who you are, but also in the deep, dark, unknown, and to give all of it a space in your body, breath, right? Had this beautiful experience yesterday in a session held by one of my best friends where she led this breathwork and shamanic journey. I mentioned to all of you that I've been going through a grief portal, and as I was doing the breath work, there was this tension in my chest, and I kept breathing into it and expanding into it. And what was so funny is you think that eventually when I cracked that space, that tears would come out, but really it was laughter. It was ecstasy. And I rode that wave for a little bit and allowed myself to just go all into that feeling because all feelings are temporary. Everything is always shifting and always changing and always evolving, visibly and invisibly. And when we can trust ourselves to feel all of the ways that we feel and know that by giving ourselves permission to sit in it, to breathe into it, it naturally will shift. And so the laughter and the joy and the ecstasy was present, and I kept breathing into it. and then it was the sobbing, and then it was the tears, right? And it was just this incredible experience of duality and inside of myself, right? The agony and the ecstasy and the place where all of it comes together in the breath is gorgeous. And I think that that's what it means to be truly alive.
You mentioned sitting, you started that off with being willing to sit with yourself. I feel like that is something that you have to do in some of these ceremonies that not only you host, but also that you've participated in the past, whether they be, um, heart opening ceremonies, plant medicine ceremonies, sound healing ceremonies. Could you tell me a little bit about that and how each one of those experiences helps transcend sitting with yourself and what that's like?
Yeah. So plant medicine, psychedelics, and sound healing, and all of these incredible modalities to express oneself, to know oneself. I think that the path that has resonated with me most deeply is yes, Kundalini yoga, is yes, plant medicine, is yes, somatic and embodiment work, but really the art of sitting with oneself, especially in a ceremonial container, really requires for us to go strip back the layers of fear, of resistance, of self-protection, and to feel into what is underneath that. We talk about emotions and how difficult it can be to sometimes actually go in and feel what's under the surface. But what I've seen with my clients and what I've experienced inside of myself is that when I sit in those places and when my clients sit in those places and open their minds up and get curious about what's underneath the surface, extreme levels of release and beauty and power get to come from that willingness to dive into the depths and to feel and express it all. And so in all of the spaces that I create, but most especially in the ceremonies, it's a place for people to most importantly feel safe to be themselves, to be wherever they're at in their process. And through facilitation and through guidance, your facilitator, myself, or those that I've worked with can really help people to um, get comfortable in the uncomfortable, but also just to get uncomfortable and to sit in the discomfort. And when the sitting in the discomfort happens, sometimes there's a release that comes in the form of sweating, of shaking, of laughing, of crying, of sometimes purging. But through that release, so much more life force energy and space opens up in the body. Our minds are expanded to new possibilities and opportunities, things that have always been present in our reality, but maybe we haven't seen before because we haven't been willing to look. Right. And so in the ceremony space with psychedelics, it's a really incredible opportunity to feel in deeply to oneself, to release, to let go, and to make new connections with oneself and with other people so that we can really have the opportunity to express and to be ourselves more fully in the world. But we can't do that until we learn to sit in our shit, if you will.
You recently did that, didn't you? You took a trip to South America.
Yes.
What was that like?
So back in April, I had the opportunity to go to Brazil with my teacher, Anthony, and also to work deeply with the Kikuan tribe. They're an indigenous tribe from Brazil and they study ayahuasca. And I went to this gorgeous retreat center and was immersed in 7 days of learning their culture, of eating their food, of practicing their rituals, of learning to communicate their language and sing their songs. And what I'll tell you, Clayton, is like, I mean, like some of the ceremonies, we sat in multiple, like 3 ceremonies throughout the week. And when I got to experience in the depth of connecting to the intelligence of this plant consciousness and the fire and the songs and the prayer and the tribe was this energy of pure joy. I got to be reminded of like, oh my gosh, like this is how good life.
What is the difference of the life that they live in their tribes there in Brazil and the life we live here in first world
Sure.
America?
So This tribe, they live in the jungle, and all of the money that they make is from the crafts that they create and from the ceremonies that they facilitate and the medicines that they create. Um, so it's a lifestyle of being so much more connected to the earth and using the plants and using our hands and using nature to really live. It's like getting back to the roots of the earth and community. It's all based around community and sharing and being close to the heart. And it was amazing. We did some beautiful celebrations and rituals where they cut these plants from trees and made hats out of them, and we danced around in circles and sang songs, and there was children there laughing. And it was just a beautiful experience of being close to nature, being in community, and remembering like when we stand shoulder to shoulder and hand to hand, we can do anything together. And they really live that.
Yeah, I know I am somebody who loves to be outside and go on hikes and run through the woods, but it really seems like they are a culture that is extremely integrated with nature. They find themselves, and I don't know, I haven't experienced it. Just from what you tell me, it sounds like, they have an acceptance that, a lot of their life is one with nature. And it just, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's incredible. I definitely one day would love to go and study more with the tribes, like do a month long or a few month long immersion and completely unplug from society and just get so close to the mother, right? I think that that would be incredible. I think that at some point it's important for all of us to unplug from the world and society, however we can do that, whether it's traveling, whether it's going out on a walk in nature, but to unplug, to reconnect is what can help us to really be present in the world, with all of the politics and all of the programming and all of the crazy stuff that goes on. We have to
Now,
have, yeah.
you probably felt called at some point to make this journey and take part in some of the plant medicine ceremonies that you took part in down there. What was that calling like for you? And do you believe every person is called at some point to participate? Or are some people, it's just not needed?
The path of psychedelics and working with plant medicines is a personal journey. We all have our own path to the divine, our own path to interconnection. And to say one way is the way for all people is just not true, not correct, because there's so many paths that lead to the same truth. So for me, I got this calling. I think I feel certain in my bones that I've been doing this work with ayahuasca and with plant medicines and been a part of tribes and living close to nature for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And so it was this ancient knowing, and as I became exposed through people in community that, I sat with ayahuasca the first time when I was 18, and I had friends who were talking about their experience with it, and I had done some reading on it, and there was just a knowing inside of me that I was meant to be there. I was meant to participate. And I think that it's, some people don't necessarily have that same knowing, but there is a curiosity. And I would say if there's any part of you or of any of the listeners that are curious about the path of working with plant-based medicines and how we can use them to really actualize our potential and heal, that it would be a really beautiful opportunity to do some research and to even maybe start with a cacao ceremony. Cacao is the food of the gods. It's these cacao beans grow in South America, and they are dry. The beans are taken out of the fruit and they're dried in the sun, and then they are turned into this powder or this paste that, when brewed in this delicious beverage, becomes this heart-opening elixir that's not psychoactive at all. You can really feel the blood rushing into the heart. And I think that for anyone that's curious about a path with plant medicine, a great place to start would be going to a cacao ceremony or going to a tea ceremony, or just looking at what's around in your community and how you can get connected with people who are interested in the same things that you're curious about and hear about their experiences.
That's what happened to me, and that's how we crossed paths. May I speak on that?
Please.
Yeah, I was curious about what I thought was going to be a psilocybin ceremony, a mushroom ceremony, which, after speaking to you, was a little bit more involved than that. Am I okay to speak on that? The plant medicine? Yeah, a San Pedro ceremony, heart awakening ceremony. And I guess for me, still coming from somebody who has actually never even experienced a mushroom ceremony, any sort of psychedelic, that was my first. There was a lot of curiosity when you were speaking to me about what that would entail. But also there was a lot of trust. And I think that's extremely important. Not only was I invited by somebody else who I had trust in, that led me to speaking with you on that, but very interesting experience. It's not necessarily that I felt called to it, but I did have a lot of curiosity, safety, trust, and security that led me to that experience.
I'm curious if you can speak into what you really took away from that ceremony.
Takeaways. One, the integration post ceremony was phenomenal. The fact that we were able to have a group of individuals be so raw and authentic about what they were experiencing, not only in that ceremony, but versions of themselves that led them to that ceremony, and a circle of pure non-judgment. I thought that was really incredible. I don't think I've ever sat in any sort of like community space like that before. Me personally, I definitely think I experienced a little bit of fear right after we got started. But slowly throughout that experience, I discovered a lot of light. I kind of went in with the expectation that I was going to find like a lot of darkness in me, because I just had no idea what I was going into. And I had no idea what any of that darkness was going to be like, but that's what I sort of had the expectation of experiencing. It was quite the opposite. All the present moment of sitting with myself and then just sharing space with other individuals in that moment really taught me how it's totally okay to be powerful, use my voice, be who I want to be without having any sort of doubt, breaking away from this person who the world has conditioned me to be, and not even necessarily in mind controlling ways. It's just like it could be a lot of ignorance of the world around me that I just happen to take on. Is any of this making sense to you? Have you ever experienced this?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you spoke into, that is such a key factor in these ceremonies, is space, a non-judgmental open space where people can be in their mess, people can be in their process, people can be in their beauty, people can be in their shame. All of it is welcome. All of it serves, right? And of course, when we start to explore ourselves, go deeper to find what is inside, there can be fear. It's natural. It's human for this unknown, what will I find kind of concern to come up. But in coming into a place of safety where everyone is authentically being themselves, it gives us naturally permission to be who we are and to feel all of the ways that we feel. And really what this work teaches us, especially with these heart openers, is how much we belong.
Yes. Yeah, and that experience, once again, just a piece of the puzzle of many experiences over the recent year that has really opened up me on the inside, starting to see the world differently on the outside based on the world I am on the inside, the universe that is me on the inside, knowing I am just as much a creator as the creator who created you and I. So I will say on that experience, I do think it was just breaking the surface, just as many others have been, talking about finding that light and being open to being powerful and using my voice even at times where I could be misspoken or, but having that confidence. But I do think I am somebody who needs to experience that again to go deeper into the root causes of, the belief systems that shifted to make me believe otherwise.
Yeah. I think that, just the willingness to go deeper and the openness and the curiosity to reach into oneself and to be willing to go through whatever we must go through to discover what our truth is really shows our true colors. It shows who we truly are. We talk about like, who are we really? Who are we really is human, is vulnerable, is imperfect, is magical and profound and unique, right? And each of us have our own intricacies and our quirks and our own experiences in life that are so precious and so fundamental to this
Totally.
world. Yeah.
This is the first year whenever somebody asks me like, "Oh, who are you?" Nice to meet you. It's the first year I've truly tried to think of an answer to that question in a way that I've never thought of before, in a way that doesn't I attach some identity to me based on what I'm doing in this outside world, what my job is, where I live, what my age is, all of these things that, I don't know, it just seems so 3D.
Sure. You know what's so beautiful in the exploration of identity, um, as we begin to look at the roles that we have in the world and who we are to our family and who we are at work, and yeah, what and our yeah, like all the ways that we explain what we do and we go, and I think that this is the place of going deeper and really connecting with the source of like, where does your fire, where does your passion, where does your sense of being deeply connected to yourself and to the world, where does that come from? And it's different for each of us, right? It's like some of us might say God, some of us might say energy, some of us might say the sun. But when you start to go deeper and ask yourselves these questions and strip back all of these roles and all of these ideas and all of these concepts, you just get to the source, right? And so what is the source for you? Right? And it's a great place for all of us to explore what is source and how do we connect with source and fuel ourselves up with source energy.
I believe we're born with that. It just gets covered up year over year that we live on this earth, and it's just uncovering that. I could be wrong, but
I mean, I think what's important to remember is that there's no, like, the opposite of a truth is another truth, right? And so your truth and what's right for you is perfect for where you are at in your journey. And what might be someone's conception of source and of universal life force energy and where they're at in their journey is perfect for them. We don't have to change anything about who we are or how we think of ourselves to really be connected to our own sense of worth, to our own sense of value, to our own sense of purpose and belonging. It's just about cultivating that deep sense of trust that we're meant to be here and that we have a unique part to play in this world. And as we commit to that journey, we learn more and more and more about ourselves and more about life, and it evolves our perception of who we are and where we come from and what we're here to do.
When you talk about that, I think of life purpose. How do you discover this in yourself, and how do you help other people that you work with discover theirs?
Mhm. Life purpose. I mean, let's bring it back to questions, right? Curiosities of what brings you to life, what excites you, what is it that when you're doing it, you completely forget about the fact that you're doing it. You just become completely engrossed in it. And life purpose is so much about discovering ourselves and what brings us to life, and then sharing that with other people. So it's a beautiful inner quest of self-discovery, of learning about yourself and what you love, and then finding a way to be able to share that love with other people. That's how I would describe life purpose and how you begin to find it.
Well, I gotta say, you're the one who nudged me to schedule guests for this podcast and get them on the calendar after I've been talking about it for months. That is exactly why I'm doing a podcast again, because it is one of the things that fires me up the most. I had to think about that deeply. I'm like, when I'm podcasting, it excites me a lot. A lot of it has to do with just being able to have a space to explore certain topics and subject areas that I myself find interesting, and also giving the other person a platform to shine and share some of the brilliance that they have, even if it's with one other person who may be listening. So that's just very interesting, because all I was thinking about while you said that was that's exactly why we're here on the podcast. Because, and I don't know if that's my life purpose. I can't tell you that just yet. It very well be a step in the ladder of discovering that. But I just know for certain that it's one of the things that excites me most. For you, what is that most exciting thing in your life right now?
What is the most exciting thing in my life right now? I'm at precipice of a big opening, an expansion, uh, and I'm going in right now to the void, into the inner void, to be able to come out on the other side and share myself more fully and more authentically. And so, what I'm most excited about, what I'm choosing to be most excited about, is all of the ways that I get to reorient my life to really create space for the future that I'm committed to. I'm excited to do the deep diving. I'm excited to create spaces for other people to do the deep diving. I'm excited about sitting together and connecting and sharing and being ourselves and having a beautiful conversation. Like when connected to my heart and when I have the space, when I create the space to be myself authentically, everything from there is an expression of my purpose, and everything from there is a reason to be excited, because that's what life is really about.
That's magical.
Ouch, ouch.
How shout. Tell me a little bit about, before we wrap up, tell me a little bit about the specific events that are going on that you may be hosting or participating in, whether they be virtually or locally, and what they may look like over the next few weeks.
Sure. So, as of right now, I am, as I shared with you all, I'm kind of in this void of self-discovery. And so I've cleared a lot of my schedule for this month to give myself the space to go deep. So right now, what my schedule looks like is I'm serving a lot of clients one-on-one. I'm taking myself to, there's drum circles here in Las Vegas that I love participating in. My friends host incredible events like the one I shared earlier, the Breathwork and Shamanic Journey. So I'm um, participating in community gatherings, and I'm building a lot of back end from a business and working with people one-on-one. So I don't have any specific events that I'm facilitating in the next couple of weeks, but every month I facilitate, starting again in October, heart medicine ceremonies. So there's one coming up next month in October, in November, and December, and those are my favorite place in the world to be and to facilitate and create and connect and collaborate. So that's what I have going on in my world.
I am curious, and I did want to ask on this earlier. What would you say your biggest responsibility is as a facilitator?
Yeah. My biggest responsibility as a facilitator is to, number one, create a container of safety where people are held psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And that requires that I know their medical background, I know their process, I know their story, I know how to really care for them to make sure that they get to have the most um, that they get to experience exactly what they're meant to experience in this space. So the most primary component of being a facilitator and responsibility is creating a container of safety by knowing my clients very well, by caring for them very well, and by creating a container where um, there are specific guidelines and agreements where everybody knows what they're participating in and they know the code of conduct so that the energy can be contained and can be held in integrity so that the deepest transformation and healing. Yeah.
Is there anybody specifically that you could mention that one or two people who are you would consider a role model to you, or one or two people who really inspire you in life?
Such a beautiful question. Well, can I just be honest and real that I'm by no means religious. I am connected to all religions and I find truth and I find wisdom and I find purpose and meaning in all of them. But my greatest role model right now is Christ. Wow. I mean, with Christ is the place where I feel the most present, loved, accepted, open. It's like and Christ is the embodiment of this unconditional love. And so my greatest role model would be Christ because what a way to study the teachings and to apply them into my life and feel like no matter what, everything is going to be okay
Yeah.
because I am safe and I am loved and I'm home in myself. Yeah. That's what the
Have you
Go
ever
ahead.
read Julie Cameron's book, The Artist's Way?
I haven't read The Artist's
You
Way.
haven't? Have you ever heard of it? No. Uh, yeah. It's a book that I picked up at the beginning of my spiritual journey, which began a year ago. Um, and there were two quotes in that book that she asks you to kind of claim and make a part of your weekly chores of writing every week. And two of them that I chose were I am willing to let God create through me, and my dreams come from God, and God has the power to accomplish them. So I really resonate with that answer. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm thrilled that it's what you brought. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's this quote, this verse that comes to me, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's taking a moment to bow to God, right? It's like it makes me emotional because we're just remembering the presence of God in my own heart, in my life. Brings this sense of confidence that goes so much further than myself. That's some
thank you,
tears.
Obsidian. Yeah, being real, being yourself.
Thank you, Clayton, for this incredible opportunity to get to explore so many amazing topics that are so meaningful to my heart. Thank you to all
Actually,
the listeners, all of you who are tuning
I
in.
have one request to finish this podcast.
Sure.
My only request is this isn't the last one, and we have to do one in person sometime in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We both know how much that in-person connection just brings to the energy of whatever we're creating or manifesting. So,
It's sure. 100% I'm down.
well, once again, thank you for being here. You're an inspiration to me. so many ways. So I'm glad you were able to share more about what you're doing.
Yes, thanks again so much for having me. Loving you so deeply, Clayton. I'm so grateful to get to share in this way. And for any of you who are listening who want to connect, you can find me on Instagram as Obsidian Whyte. I'd love to hear from you.